our theme as Immunefi this year is recognizing that the $1 trillion economy isn't really going to happen without better security practices. And that really starts from the Web3 side. It starts from the data development. Web2, as we've seen recently, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I do want to introduce our esteemed guests here tonight. First of all, again, thank you to the Sorry Gorgeous staff. And then also thank you to our partners in throwing this event tonight in Nexus Mutual and Asymmetric Research. So we'll go quickly through and we'll start down there with Sebastian. We'll have you introduce yourself first and say hello and work your ways this way.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm a security engineer at Asymmetric Research. And I like to say we're a Web3 security shop that does everything except for audits and bug bounties.
Hey, I'm Alejandro. I'm a security researcher at Immunefi, and I handle the critical reports that we see on our platform.
My name's Lee. I'm head of product and risk at Nexus Mutual. We're an on-chain insurance alternative. We underwrite a wide variety of risk, whether it's smart contract and protocol risk to Immunefi bug bounty cover risk. So we underwrite a lot of different types of cover. We're one of the largest cover providers on chain.
All right, thanks to the panel, and I appreciate you joining me up here tonight. I guess we'll get started with what's been on everybody's mind the past week, which is the Bybit hack. And actually, I'm going to start with you, Sebastian. Our CEO predicted this. I don't think it was like a very spicy prediction. I think many people up here kind of saw these types of things happening, right? Which is sometimes the easiest way to create a giant mess or a giant hack is frankly through human error. And that's what we kind of saw the last week. So, many DeFi projects, many of the L1s that you all work with could be subject to these same types of things. So, what are some of the most common oversights you all are seeing as you work with these big customers? And then maybe as a follow-up, how can they proactively address them? Both the human element and any other oversights you see either on the Web3 side or just the Web2 area.
Yeah. I mean, the recent hack basically, beautifully showed how you can put as much security on the Web3 side as you want, but you need to keep in mind that there's access control policies that are maybe too lax on the Web2 front end or whatever, back end, whatever you might be protecting there. So that's one of the most common things that we see. Like, there's like a way too lax of an access control policy that people have. Like some people might struggle with putting together a decent access control policy in the first place. So that's one thing that we try to help them with, with like, of course, like the principle of least privilege, that's the classic security one that very strongly applies to crypto, especially when you're handling private keys. What was the second follow-up question?
Yeah, the second one was kind of just, what are some of the, how can teams proactively address these things? So, how do you proactively address the oversights, the things you might take for granted in everyday security?
Yeah, I think like, the whole narrative of blockchain, when I came into blockchain, is that it's secure, right? And I think that's something that people took for granted somehow. Like everything is secure, we just need to worry about the smart contracts. And now we're seeing like, if you want to be proactive, you need to think about traditional security. So don't take, everything that, Google does for you in Gmail or whatever for granted. You need to configure everything properly. So take the time to do that, to configure everything properly. And, in such cases, like explicitly with the Bybit hack, I think like one very interesting aspect was you could have just sent a, small transaction to see if the funds are going where they're supposed to go, or like not a really small one, but smaller than, 400,000 ETH. So that might, be an extra step for security. You don't put all that money in one hot wallet. You split it into multiple ones.
Yeah, makes sense. Ale, from your perspective, as attackers are exploiting these vectors, what would be our best practice that we might recommend? We're not saying you're speaking on behalf of Immunefi, but as a security researcher yourself, what would be the best practices you see as overlooked? Anything different from what Seb kind of shared with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what was said is definitely a good thing to do. When you get to the root of the problem of what Bybit was, it was, human error was the issue there. And that's something that's very difficult to solve. That will always be a problem in the security industry. But what I think that we can do, especially when we're in an industry where you need to trust but verify every action that you do, is provide better tooling for end users to do that. So I think that's something that we do have the ability to do. We do have the ability to improve. I'm really excited for the new tooling coming out. On the Bybit topic, actually, OpenZeppelin just came out with a front end for a very cool tool by PC Aversaccio that lets you verify the safe message hash. And you can generate that locally and verify on your hardware wallet if that's the same. So things like that make it easier to verify the actions that you're doing. That's very important to make it as easy as possible for people to practice good security.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly. Lee, from a risk management perspective, are these types of exploits coverable? Is this something that Nexus even considers?
No, so the problem with these type of human error is you can't tell if it's legitimate or not. It's going to be attacked, right? Just like any other system, when there's a vulnerability, somebody will exploit. So if you're offering something and you're saying, we'll cover a wallet or we'll cover, this failure, human error, how can you verify if it's legitimate, or there was somebody on the inside that coordinated the attack said, I got compromised. So we can't do that just yet. I'd love to get to a place where we can, but I think a lot of this just needs to be abstracted away. And I do think if there are better operational security practices, the better tooling available for people so they can verify these things. We're talking about two very large, well-funded and well-versed players in the space. So if they're prone to this kind of error, how do you get funds and other people to come out chain and trust this infrastructure? Because even though everything's trusted in DeFi, most of the time, trust is such a huge part behind our system. So in the future, if there's better tool behind our infrastructure, it's something we could cover, but we can't cover it.
Peace. Security in Web3 is often framed as don't get hacked. But it's far more complex than that, as many of us sitting here already know. So what is the best starting point for good on-chain security? And the way I'm asking this, or the reason I'm asking this, is bug bounties and hearing about people getting paid out a lot of money or getting covered by Nexus, or having folks at Asymmetric, author best practices. But what could these people be doing to the left of even engaging with all of us that would be a great piece of ROI for them that they just don't tend to do today? Whoever, yeah.
So one thing that is definitely underrated is putting together a very good technical spec that has a good access control policy in it and has all your the threat model in it, and then working from that, building and test it, writing the tests that check for those threats in the threat model. I think that's as much as to the left as you could go. And of course, while you're doing that, you should vet your design by security experts, right? You shouldn't do, you shouldn't make huge design decisions that have to do with security only in-house. You should definitely ask someone for their opinion and not wait until everything has been built and then get an audit, and then it's too late to change anything in the design.
Yeah, definitely on that. Write standard operating procedures for every single mission critical action you need to. If you need multiple people to sign a message for a multi-sig, write every single step that you need to do in that loop, and document it. That one gives you a centralized place for people to understand what they need to do, and two, it lets you, like Sasha said, get that basically audited. You don't really get that in a traditional audit, but maybe that's something that we should be thinking about, is security consultants maybe should be understanding the operational procedures that you will be doing as a protocol, because we obviously we look at the code, but we may not necessarily look at those operational procedures. Yeah.
And Lee, same question to you, but maybe from a risk perspective. What's almost like the first question you'd ask to start assessing risk? Just like, what's the first checkbox that you'd almost say like you go for? And you can answer it exactly how they did or from the risk side of things.
I mean, I think what you said was right. Operations security within your organization is paramount, right? If you have an upgradable proxy and it's controlled by an EOA or a 203 multi-sig, it doesn't matter how secure your smart contracts are. All I have to do is compromise one or two people, and I can upgrade to facility rating. Doing internal testing, having good documentation, a clear communication between teams is big. But when I look at protocol, I look at every invested in security, and that movie is already listening. Do they have quality codes from the outside guy? Do they back audits? And there's two protocols that didn't even follow audits. All these things are really important. Likely, health stakes now been a lot safer. People spend, even a quarter of the amount of money they spend in marketing is spent on it.
Yeah, great. So Alejandro, we facilitated at Immunefi some of the biggest payouts in the industry. Some of the people who have received those are in this room as we speak, who have been a part of that. Can you share an example of a critical vulnerability that we've uncovered and what that looked like?
Yeah, so there's many I can't talk about, of course, but there is one that has stuck with me for a while, and that's the wormhole uninitialized proxy implementation bug. So that was, it was essentially an operational mistake, which is very on topic with the things we've been talking about today. And Bybit especially. But it stuck with me because it made me realize that with bug bounties, there's not only overlap with the security value of audits, but there's also an additional gap that they fill, which is this monitoring of operational procedures. About that vulnerability, it was actually it also sticks with me because it was a $10 million payout to the security researcher because there was an immense value at risk because of a simple mistake, because of the simple operational mistake. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons why that is a little special to me. Also, I did a talk about it, one of my first talks. So yeah, that's one of the ones I can talk about. One of the ones that are a very interesting example case of how bug bounties cover something different than audits and, the immense value that they can provide.
Great, thank you. Sebastian, we'll go back to you. Tell us about the approach that Asymmetric Research generally takes with customers, the types of customers you serve. I think some folks in the room might not be as familiar, given that you just celebrated, I think, the 1-year anniversary of the founding of the company.
Yeah, so it's a pretty non-conventional approach, in the sense that even like at the conference, if you go around and you introduce yourself, I'm working for a security company, and they say, oh, you do audits, right? And I'm like, no, we don't. And that's when it gets interesting, right? Because it says like, oh, what else can you do? Like, if you don't do audits, what the hell are you guys doing? And, it takes some time to wrap your head around it. But basically, you can think about it as having a big project like Wormhole and trying to find, top-notch security researchers to be your internal security team. We basically come there and we fill the gap, right? And we can help big projects with very difficult problems, starting from the design phase of the consensus protocol, of, all the IT infrastructure, because we have an infrastructure team that is running Solana validators, running validators from many different chains. So we basically cover security from the infrastructure perspective, design, and we basically are sort of like a confidant to the developers. We meet with the developers on a at least weekly basis, if not multiple times a week, and we consult them with the designs. And last but not least, of course, we do triaging for their bug bounty program. So when someone submits, a good report or a bad report, we will respond within a few seconds, right? And do that triage, and we're going to communicate and try to negotiate with the white hat hacker. So basically, putting a focus on security such that the customer can focus on the business side and growing their business.
So let's put a cap on this and let everybody get back to their drinks and their chatting. I want to ask the guests here, Lee and Sebastian. I don't know whose feedback that is, probably me, but hopefully this helps. There we go. What are you most looking forward to this year as Nexus Mutual? If there's something you could share with the group, feel free to. We'd love to hear that. And then what do you most look forward to in Web3? Ideally security-based, but it really can be anything that you're really excited about this year over at Nexus Mutual.
I think on the Nexus side, we're working on making it easier for people to protect themselves. We're working with a bunch of new developers which have developed. We've also developed a Mutual funnel, which you don't really have a photo, and where your wallets. One portfolio developer, the virtual UFI, the default bug back pump. The tends knock-on effect of all the non-risk underwrite. So if you can increase your bug bounty and you can offload 80% of the critical fail on the mutual, you can scale that and get more people up your throwaways. It's secure that so you don't get exported. You don't need to be stressed. And of course, on the back end, we're there for protection is doing. But we're working in a few different areas ranging now. We're working with some new distributors like Huffington to help make coverage more accessible on L2s, L1s, and really make them cover wallets and get for users. What I'm most excited about in this space is to take the existing tooling we have, harden it, and get more people on chain with some very basic infrastructure you already have. If you talk to normal people, they're excited about the sky savings rate, deploying on Aave. If you get people in and show them how cool the belt is and how powerful it is, we get a lot more craft from Kelly.
Yeah.
Equally, that's bad security.
Yeah.
To get those people on the trust process.
Certainly agree, and it's been a pleasure partnering with you all. We look forward to continue to do it. I'll go back to Sebastian at the end. Anything from the asymmetric side you're excited about this year, or just the space in general?
I'm excited about the kind of tooling that we've started building, and I can't talk too much about it because it's
Come on, let's break some news.
Something cooking. But I can say it's going to be for some ecosystems that don't have as much tooling as Ethereum. So that's super exciting for us. And another thing that I'm excited about, which is not on the tooling side, but more on the operational security side. Last year, our CEO, he also identified this problem that happened, to Bybit and others. And we started offering something called enterprise security, where we're helping Web3 startups put their shit together when it comes to operational security.
Yeah.
So helping them configure everything properly and have an EDR, have an MDM solution, and so on. Basic traditional security, which goes a very long way for Web3 startups.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us here. Thanks for co-sponsoring the event. And thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. And we'll let everybody get back to socializing. Thanks, everybody.